Welcome to Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach with Mark Gellard and Candy Reid.
Okay, welcome to the latest edition of Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. My name is Candy Reid. Beside me is Mark Gellard. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Candy. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining, as always.
The grass court season has begun, Mark. Not particularly successful, but I'm sure you'll tell us the difficulties of transferring from clay to grass, because it always seems to me that it comes very quickly and the grass court season is very, very short, so it's difficult to prepare for.
Yeah, it's a strange situation in tennis that you have two of the most polar opposite surfaces in clay and grass that are so closely packed to each other. I mean, you have two Grand Slams within a month, basically, of each other. So it's a bit of an odd situation. But yeah, we came off the clay in Paris, which didn't go great. The overall clay season, as I said last time, was good, although didn't end well. And then we came to Hertogenbosch, which runs a really nice event, although the weather has been not particularly conducive for outdoor grass court weather. We actually, I'm trying to find, I need to do some research in the record books, but it's the first time I can ever remember as a coach that we played doubles on Monday and we were stopped at a set and 4-all for bad weather. We were stopped and it was rescheduled for Wednesday. And then we played our singles on Wednesday morning, and that was stopped for bad light in the evening because of rain, pushed us back all day. And we were rescheduled for that the following day. So we had two matches begun and two matches that weren't finished until Thursday. But we won our first round of doubles and then lost our second round of doubles and then had a tight loss 7-5 in the third to Robin Montgomery.
Robin Montgomery's, I think, a very good player, particularly on the grass, because she's a tall, hard-hitting, flat-hitting left-hander, isn't she?
I was impressed with her game. I thought that we played an extremely good first set. And I said to Magda afterwards, I said, this is my feeling. When you're on clay exposes you physically. It really does. Because it challenges you to be able to do the court requires you to be able to do a lot of things with the ball, with your movement. The grass courts tend to challenge you a little bit more mentally for me, because it's a real game of concentration. Because if you take off 2 points in a match, on a grass court match, and lose your focus, that can be the difference. You know, we had I'm sad to say we had a break point conversion of 0 out of 14, which isn't going to get the job done. And those you play great the whole match, but if you're not converting those points, that 6-3 match suddenly becomes a 7-5 loss in the third. So we just weren't good enough in the big points, which was a mental letdown for us.
And what about physically? What do you do in the gym a bit differently to prepare for the grass court season? Because I don't know about you, given that we've both been brought up in Britain, we did play a lot of grass court tennis when we were younger. And I always remember my knees and my back being a little sorer after I started on grass.
Yeah, there's no question there are differences in the way you feel physically after that. I know, I think it's something that a little misconception a lot of people have is that, clay is a demanding sport, but it requires a lot of cardio and a lot of endurance, amongst other things. But on the grass, if anyone that has played on grass or just walk on grass, you'll know that there's no energy pushback from the ground. So if you drop a ball on grass, the surface sucks out all the energy from the ball, and it does the same to your body. So when you jump up and down on a grass court, for example, the ground doesn't push back against you in the same way a hard court or a clay court would. So the energy that you produce is lost. It's absorbed into the ground, and there's no pushback. So what that does is it really drains your power. So power endurance becomes a real problem on grass courts. And that's something that, when you watch over the years, Pete Sampras serving and volleying, that is more tiring than running side to side for 10 balls, is trying to hit the hardest serve you can and then sprinting to the net for a volley. That requires a lot of power. And you're doing that repeatedly for 3 or 5 sets as he would do it. So there's some major differences, and the power is a massive part of a grass court match. So when we're in the gym now, we're going to have to do a lot more focusing on the power endurance, which is obviously something that's important on any surface, but particularly on grass, because there's no energy pushback from the ground.
I'm glad you brought up Pete Sampras and his style of play, which was not dissimilar, I think, from the way that Martina Navratilova played her grass court tennis. Would you say that Martina is arguably the best women's grass court player ever? I think you've got to probably put Billie Jean King in there as well, but Martina's got to be right up there.
Yeah, I would say so. I think she played for such a long period of time. I think that she was one of the players that if you looked back, you would say, well, she changed the game. She was one of the first players, male or female, that started traveling with a coaching team, fitness trainer. She took fitness. She made, tennis players have to become athletes, especially on the women's side. I think that she really revolutionized the game. And then the way she obviously was able to serve and volley, the way she was able to adapt to grass. And she played it. Yeah, she was miles ahead of her time. And she sort of set the ground for everyone after her. So I think, that's her, Steffi, Billie Jean were crucial.
So that's a good transition into our interview this week, which was with Raj Chaudhuri. He's the current head coach of Bethanie Mattek Sands. Someone you know well, Mark, is Raj. And I do too, because actually he was the assistant coach to Andy Brandy at the University of Florida when I was at the University of Tennessee. It was you, Mark, who got Raj and me together at the Australian Open this year. How do you know Raj?
I've known Raj for a long time. He's just such a charismatic, friendly coach that's been on the tour for years. I remember when he worked with Jill Craybas many, many years ago. And he was always very friendly. He's a guy that loves to talk tennis. So it's always fun to see him and debate certain subjects about tennis coaching and philosophies with him. He's a really good listener. He's obviously an excellent coach with a lot of experience. He played college, coached college. So he's really done a similar path to me. I think we had a lot of common ground, and it's always fun to speak tennis with him. So I think people are going to enjoy listening to his thoughts.
Yeah, he's got a long list of coaching people, including Martina and Bethanie. So here's the conversation that I had with Raj at Australian Open 2024. Enjoy it. Okay, so that was Raj Chaudhuri, current coach of Bethanie Mattek Sands, former coach of many others, including arguably the best women's grass court player of all time, Martina Navratilova. I hope you found that interesting and informative. I've actually used the machine that he has adapted, and it's just incredible. And he uses it. I was giving it a good go, and it was really working my muscles very hard indeed. So that is something to look out for, that contraption. Mark, we're talking about a little bit about the grass court season now, but let's just recap on Roland Garros. The French Open is being completed. The season is a little bit strange, isn't it, this year, because we've got the Paris Olympics, so we go back on the clay after the short grass court season. But overall, your thoughts on Roland Garros and the whole clay court season so far this year?
Well, I think it just showed how elite Iga is on all surfaces, especially clay. What she's doing, a couple of interview questions I saw in her press conferences were already comparing her with Rafa and his dominance at the French. I know she's got a long way to go, but yeah, she's special. I mean, she's a special player on all surfaces, but what she's doing on the grass is outstanding. And to come through against Osaka in the second round after facing a few match points there, it just shows her mental toughness as well as her physical capabilities. So I thought that was good for her. And it was nice to see some other players going deep in there that maybe don't typically go deep. For anyone that watched the men's final, I thought that was... I think everyone was for a period of time, we were getting worried what was going to happen when Roger and Novak and Rafa were done. And this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that one of those three guys hasn't been in the final for I can't remember how many years, 15 years or something like that. Yeah, so it's definitely as a changing of the guards happening, but I think we're really in good hands with Alcaraz and his compatriots, because the level that they're playing and what they're doing with the ball, it's incredible. Zverev seems to have been a little bit of a rebirth for him in the last year or so, I feel, on and off the court. I think he's changed a little bit. And one thing that I find interesting with him is that we get a lot of people talking about all the things, more so on the women's side now with the challenges the women face, which there are plenty. But nobody really talks about how much of a challenge it is for him having to deal with being diabetic as well. Because There was a moment during the final when I was watching it in the hotel room last week, where he was injecting himself with insulin during the match, and that's really impressive for a top player to be doing that as well and managing all the things that they're doing. I mean, it's incredible. So that's something that he doesn't get enough credit for. But I've digressed off the topic of the question there. But I just thought it was a really interesting Paris, although the first week of weather wasn't very good. I thought it was a nice tournament as always, and maybe just the French need to reconsider their alcohol policy on site next year.
Oh, I want to go into that. I briefly will say that I met Alexander Zverev in Acapulco earlier this year, and my husband's type 1 diabetic. So I was really interested because I know Simon struggles with having a lack of energy, and that's quite common with type 1 diabetics. And Zverev, his answer to me when I asked him about how he coped with it, said he doesn't really notice it because he's had it since he was so young. He's just always coped with it. But even Simon, my husband, getting through airport security with needles and things like that, you can imagine it's a real pain. And Zverev's doing that week on, week off. And I'll also say just quickly, because we know what Zverev's gone through off the court, and this may be a little controversial, but having type 1 diabetes and maybe not managing it from time to time does lead in anger problems to some people that have it. You tend to get very angry very quickly because it's almost like you've got a lot of hunger. You're very, very hungry, or your levels drop, so you feel very, very strange. I'm lucky enough not to have it. But that might just go some way to explaining some of the trouble that Alexander Zverev has got himself into off the court. But I'm digressing as well. So let's just go back, because I know this is something you wanted to discuss, Mark, between the men and the women. And it was a controversial subject, wasn't it, with Amélie Mauresmo, the tournament director. And you think being a female, she'd be pro-women and really pushing women's matches in the evening and perhaps practice as well, giving the women 50-50 with the men. But from what you've seen, that hasn't really been the case.
Yeah, I think that this whole topic of, and by the way, I was just applying my chapstick for a little bit of brand placement there. So if they're watching and they want to get involved in Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach, they're welcome. And
We
also,
are looking for
I
sponsorship.
don't know if anyone's, we always are, but I don't know if anyone's heard of this brand as well. They're welcome to join us as well.
I don't think they are going to be interested. We may get Pepsi, but I think Coca-Cola is
Pepsi's
off.
fine. Sorry. So it's a tricky one because I have a very unique, no, I'm not unique. I'm not smart enough to say I'm unique, but my perspective on the equality thing is very clear cut. I think that you are worth, as the females should be paid proportionately to what they bring into the sport, and the males should be the same. When you're always saying, well, the men get this, we should get the same, that's a mistake, because at some part in the future, if in 50 years things flip-flop and the women are making more and they're bringing more revenue, are they then going to say, no, we don't want more because that means we get paid more than the men? No, you want to be paid what you're worth. And, potentially that could be worth more than the men, which is great. The issue I have is that we see a lot of talk about this, especially from the top players, with regarding when they get match court times. Are they on prime time? Are they in the evening? Whatever. I know Azarenka has brought up in the past that the men's finals always are on Sundays. Right. And that happens to be a far more marketable day for most American households because it's a day where they are home and able to watch, whereas Saturdays are more difficult. So that naturally then brings down the viewership for the women's final. Okay, that's definitely something to consider. But if you want full equality across the board with the men, first of all, you have to make your own bed. And that means you have to have equality amongst all the women first. And that is so far away from being achieved. So I'll give you, there's two sort of branches of what happens on the tour. When we come to a tournament like we do this week in Hertogenbosch, there's 32 players in the main draw, plus the qualifying players, plus doubles. I can assure you that when Naomi Osaka comes this week, I can guarantee you she's not staying in the same hotel that Magda and I are in. She's not paying for her hotel. And she's getting 2 or 3 hotel rooms paid for by the tournament. So let's talk about equality. I can also tell you that she's not taking the same transport that we're taking, which is fantastic here this week in Hertogenbosch, amazing. But in general, she'll have her own car, probably her own driver with a dedicated car. So when we have to wait in line for transport from the hotel to the site and vice versa, she's not waiting in line, right? She gets straight to where she needs to go. She's going to get an appearance fee and money. Okay. So, and I have no issue with any of that. If that's what the tournament feels that she's worth and they're willing to do that, then good for her. Good for her. That's a commercial advantage, and that's something that she's earned. No problem. Where I have an issue is when the players get a competitive advantage. So when players are getting extra practice time. So this week in Hertogenbosch, we have a situation at the practice courts where I'm definitely not their favorite person to see, because we're getting half a court for an hour. Okay, that's all we're getting. Now, it's packed. When we're practicing on half a court for an hour, but I see Osaka practicing on a whole court for 2 hours with a hitting partner. Okay, so when I challenge the practice desk as to why this happens, well, that's the director's choice. That's the tournament's decision. Okay, fine. But let's just be really clear here that your last name or your past achievements do have a big impact on what you get today. Because then that's the reality of life. I get that. It's in all aspects. But let's make sure then that these girls that typically are the ones that are complaining because they have the loudest voice, right? The top players, they want equality with the men. Yeah, because it suits you to have equality with the men. But if we want full equality, would you like to have equality with the girls or the women, that are ranked 50, 60, 70, 80? No, you don't. So let's be real clear here. You don't want equality. You want equality where it suits you, where it's convenient. Yes. Because, and for me, like I said, I don't have a problem with them getting extra stuff. I even think there are some moral, ethical questions that you can raise about giving them free stuff. Is that not somewhat... It gets tricky with that, because I wonder, is that breaking some ethical codes in terms of, if you're providing free things for certain people but not for others? But I can deal with it. I can swallow that. What I can't swallow is when there's already a gap between how well they're playing and performing and how well we're doing. That gap's just going to grow when they're getting 2 hours of practice and we're not. So I find that, when I hear these complaints from a lot of the top players saying, well, they're not giving us the prime time, I'm not too concerned about that. I think that's a luxury complaint that I don't have a lot of interest in joining that discussion right now. I'd like to see equality across the board. These girls are typically getting buys for the seeded players. They're getting a lot more opportunities. So again, just to be clear, I have no problem with a commercial advantage. I have a big problem with a competitive advantage for these players, and I think that it's in the media you're going to hear a lot about what they don't get compared to the men, but you're never hearing what they get compared to most of their counterparts on the WTA.
Have you ever put that to any of the top players and said, well, you want equality with the men, but you don't want equality with someone, say, ranked outside the top 50 or whom hasn't won a major?
Absolutely. I mean, I am, for the last year and a half, I've been on the CPAC for the WTA coaches board, and I've brought that up several times. And, I understand it's tricky, but the loudest voices are from the best players. They have the most pull. And so to change something like that is very difficult, because they're going to object the most and they have the most following, the most support. So it's like the kid in the front of the class, the kid in the class that causes the most problems gets the most attention. Whoever screams the loudest is going to get what they want, most likely. But I think that this is something that the lower ranked players, and I've encouraged Magda and all those kinds of players that are in that sort of mid-range group to say, you guys have to stand up here and say, we're not anymore going to accept that you provide advantages to other players, competitive ones. Commercial, fine, but these players are already making millions of dollars more in prize money. They're getting all the sponsor money, but I have a real problem when practice is affected by that, and that to me doesn't seem fair. So. Yeah. You
don't actually hear any journalists ask the players that question, do you, in press conferences? I'm very rarely in press conferences, but when I see the transcripts, you don't see a question like that. And that would be interesting to ask, not just about the equality with the men, but also equality within the top 100 or top 200, etc. So it's something to keep in mind. If I'm ever in one, I try and bring that up, because it is, I think,
Yeah,
very relevant.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough thing to change, but I think that it's something that should be addressed, because if you do, and I really think that they have to stop comparing. We see this right now with the men. This Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. Have I got the name right there?
I think
I
so.
feel bad
Sounds
if
right to
I
me.
think it was Caitlin Clark. I
Yeah.
need to double check, but she's created a storm in the States now, because she played college basketball. She was very popular. She's gone into the WNBA and she's commanded a big salary. She's all of a sudden, the viewership for the WNBA has gone through the roof. Well, she's going to pick up a lot of commercial sponsors from that, and she's going to get a lot of benefits because of what she's been able to do. But what I don't think she should get in the WNBA is extra practice time or more practice balls to throw into the basket and to practice with. She shouldn't be getting that. She'll be the beneficiary of all the financial, commercial, all of that stuff. I don't think that when you go to watch the Stanley Cup hockey finals or the NBA or the football, that they're going to make sure that in the Euros that the best football teams get to practice on the match pitch for an hour, but the other teams get sent out to the local park. I don't think that happens. I could be wrong. If someone knows I'm wrong, they should message us and inform me. But I think that shouldn't be allowed to happen.
I bet it does happen in football tournaments like the Europa League, where you've got a big team like Manchester City, or say at the Club World Cup, which was in Jeddah last year, and you've got Manchester City and teams like Al Ittihad and lower ranked teams and lower prestigious teams, I suppose. It'd be interesting to know what sort of things they get compared to someone like Manchester City, who are one of the best ever in Europe. Just moving on, Mark, I'm just noticing a fox, I think, on your lapel of your jumper. Is it a fox?
It does look like a fox, doesn't it? Actually, I need to. This is actually. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. It's a bit shiny, so I don't know if it will show in the camera.
There it is.
So this is. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, this is Magda's new foundation that she started. It's a sort of a ball with some wings on it. So
right.
it's. She has started her Magda Linette Foundation in Poland, which is aimed to help kids in Poland, especially disadvantaged kids, gain access to tennis and other sports. So there'll be some soccer in there and basketball, etc. Hence why there's a ball with some wings. So it's not just tennis, but trying to give players or young kids the opportunity to play sports and then get an education with it as well. So this is a new venture from Magda. And I will use it as a moment to just plug an upcoming event we have on the 19th and 20th of July in Poznan, Poland, which is Magda's hometown, where we are going to be having a Kids Day, which will be held by Magda and myself, but we will also be having a special guest helping us run it, or we'll be doing most of the work, I hope, which will be Judy Murray.
Oh, fantastic.
So she's going to be coming over. She's agreed to help us run this for about 4 hours on the Friday, the 19th of July. And then concurrently with that, throughout the rest of the 19th and the 20th, I'll be running a coaches education conference with some real exciting speakers. So we're going to have myself, Ian Hughes will be obviously taking part in that as well. We will be having Magda's. It's going to be a lot of Magda's team in there. So we're going to be having one of her sports psychologists that's been working with her over the years, Cassiano Costa, who's been her fitness trainer for some time now. So we're going to be having a whole team there to do some presentations on and off the court. So it'll be practical and theory. And so any coaches interested, please get in touch. It'll be a really exciting event. It's going to be really well run, we hope. And if it isn't, you can blame Magda. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. So exactly, she'll be the one to blame. But 2-day event. But the 19th will be the Kids' Day in Poland, which will be for Magda Linette's Foundation at her club AZS Poznan.
Okay, and is your conference, is that in Poznan as well, or is that elsewhere?
It's at the same club. We'll be hosting that at the same club. So Magda's event will run Saturday morning from about 9 till 1. And then from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till about 7 at night, we'll be running the coaches conference. And then all day Sunday, Judy Murray will also be one of the speakers or presenters as well. So we're going to have a really exciting group of people to come and talk. And I think it'll be a real educational event for everyone.
Fabulous. And what's the best way for coaches listening if they do want to get in touch with you? Do you think the Twitter or X handle at DOAPTC, or do you want to get them in touch another way?
Yeah, that would be a great one. They can reach out to myself at mark@firststriketennis.com if they prefer. Or I'm going to tell you right now, her foundation website is just linettefoundation.com. There's a sign-up form there for any kids that wanted to sign up and register for the Kids Day. Or if you're a coach looking to come to the conference, it would probably be better to contact me directly, but through our Twitter handle or through my email or website, firststriketennis.com.
All right, great. Thanks, Mark, for that. We've got 2 pieces of exciting news. Our podcast has now hit 10,000 downloads. So thank you very much to everyone who's downloaded and listened, hopefully enjoy. And we also have the other good news, which is a listener question. We had Lazare from Brittany in France ask Mark a question last week, and he filmed it as well. So as you know, we're now on YouTube as well as on all the podcast providers, including Apple and Spotify. This week's question is from Randy Bailey, and he's asking about what to do in the case, Mark, of a blister, of which most tennis players have at least 1 or 2 in their lives, don't they, on their hands, sometimes on their feet. But he's asking you, how do you sort that out when it happens to you? Any good ideas?
It's a great question from Randy, and it's a tough one to answer because you would have liked to have thought technology would have improved quicker than it has to fix things, ailments like that.
Real skin.
Not terrible. Yeah, they're not terrible injuries, but they are really painful. My experience, I suffered with them for a while. And one of the things that I found out when mine got really bad was the importance of having your hands clean, because I couldn't get them to go. They would just keep coming back. And there's so much bacteria in your skin. So washing frequently and changing the grip a lot, because that was the other thing. If you're not changing your grip a lot, that they get more slick, then there's less friction. So then you start creating rubbing and blisters. So the pros, like Magda will change her grip every day. She never plays with the same grip, usually more than a day.
And she's using an overgrip. Is that right?
That's right. So you'll have your regular undergrip, and then you just wrap an overgrip on there. Yonex are probably the best overgrips that are out there. The white ones that you'll see a lot of players using. Do that. Make sure you clean your hands a lot. If you do get blisters, the old remedy of vinegar on the hands at night to toughen up the skin. And then using, they have blister cushions or donuts. Essentially, it's just a round hole the way you would put over I've actually got blisters, and you can see I would put it over there. The issue is really, though, is that all of these things are very hard to put on and stay on.
Yeah. And you lose the feel, don't you, in your hands?
You lose the feel, and it's really important to have good feel in your hands. So there is no really one, I actually probably had the most success when I got blisters with doing something I was told not to do, which was using super glue. I don't encourage anyone to do that, but it was the only thing that put a seal over my hands that didn't come off.
Yeah.
But yeah, just making sure they're clean, avoid infection, and
keep them dry, I suppose, as well. Because if you've got sweaty hands, you're going to be more likely, aren't you? Or humidity, that will probably lead to more blisters.
Absolutely. And I think that this is the worst advice, or the worst thing to hear, is to try and prevent it more. Because if you're living in a place like Florida or somewhere that's very humid, wearing wristbands will be helpful to stop any sweat dripping down your forearm onto your hands. So that will stop the amount of sweat in your hands. And then also using some kind of resin. Magda does use she uses a Prince, I think it was Prince, or it could have been Yonex, but it's a pot you can get, which is almost like a gluey type, and you put it in your hands. It absorbs all the moisture, like a resin bag.
You see a lot of players doing that, don't you? Actually putting it on during the change of ends.
Exactly. Yes. So I think those are probably the best ways, because, and I have found as well, for whatever reason, that I find a lot of adolescents, and I don't know, no medical background, but it seems that maybe when you're young, in your teenage years, skin is a little bit more susceptible to, to acne or things like this. So I found a lot of juniors. Plus, I would imagine it just happens to be the time when most people are playing more than they ever have, right? Teenagers are the ones playing a lot more tennis, training, taking it more seriously. So I think it's a combination of factors, but trying to keep the hands dry, prevent them rather than treat is the best way to go.
I think someone told me that was the only unperfect thing about Roger Federer, his hands and his feet. Everything else is always perfect, but the hands had big calluses and the feet were a bit manky like the rest of ours. Anybody who plays tennis has manky feet, don't they?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get many people with I don't think you're going to get many tennis pros going into foot fetish stuff after their career, for sure.
You heard it here first. That's a tennis exclusive diary of a professional tennis coach. Just a quick reminder to everyone, we are looking for sponsorship. So if you would like to come on board and be a partner with Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach, Mark and I would absolutely love to speak to you. Anything else, Mark, you have to add? I know you are in 's-Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands right now, or have you left?
No, we are in Hertogenbosch. To just jump on your last point there, Candy, we are looking for partners. This area is available for tattoo at the right price. Anything down here. So whatever, we've got plenty of options for you. We are in Hertogenbosch. We are practicing one more day tomorrow before heading to England for Birmingham and Eastbourne, the last two warm-up events for Wimbledon. We're hoping the weather gets a bit better there as well. We've heard it's not too great where you are right now. It's been cold and wet everywhere in Europe.
It's actually lovely. I played golf today at West Surrey and it was beautiful. So we haven't had too much rain, I have to say. So fingers crossed that continues.
Tough life you're having over there.
So tough. I start on Berlin on Monday, and I believe Iga Swiatek has just withdrawn, which I'm a bit upset about.
Yeah, I kind of figured she would after that run. I mean, if we'd been on that run, I'd taken the rest of the year off. So I think she deserves a rest. And it's a quick turnaround because you want to be careful with typically there are studies that I would need to re-examine, but a lot of the injuries occur during the transition phases of moving from one surface to another. So there tended to be a lot of injuries going from the hard courts in March straight onto the clay, and then again in this sort of early June time from the clay to the grass, and then again end of June, July back onto the hard courts. That's where the injuries tend to occur, as those different surfaces take their toll. And
we know that Iga's main goal this year, apart from winning Roland Garros once again, is going to be the Olympics, isn't it? Which is at the same venue. Carlos Alcaraz has already said he'd forgo winning Wimbledon to win an Olympic medal. And the exciting news is that Alcaraz and Rafa Nadal will team up on the doubles court. That is going to generate a lot of excitement. All right, I think that will do it for Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Mark, you, Ian and Magda, I think, have dinner plans, so go and enjoy those. And we'll catch up very soon. We're going to go face-to-face, aren't we, at Wimbledon in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm really looking forward to that. See you then.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone, for listening, as always.
Thanks, Mark. And we'll be back very, very soon. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching.